Hi there, here's Christina from Changing Parenting, and I recently worked with a mom who was feeling really guilty because she was constantly snapping at her child, losing her patience, screaming at her child, and she felt like she was stuck in that cycle of constantly screaming, constantly losing it, constantly, and she didn't want to be that type of mom, and that's why she came to me. And we worked a lot. Of course, we worked on the child's behavior because, of course, all children struggle with behavior, right? We need to learn also how to teach our children the skills they need in order not to repeat the behavior, in order to know how to deal with those emotions, those wants, those needs that they have in a way that is positive, right? Instead of going through that challenging behavior. But we also worked a lot on her, and very often you need to start by working on you, because all the parenting tips in the world will not help you if you don't work on yourself also. You need to be able to put on your oxygen mask, self-regulate, if you want to then be able to teach your child how to deal with the situation, because otherwise you are just going to snap because you don't have that, you're not in that headspace where you're able to check what your child needs in that moment and teach them something. Because if you're mad, if you're really upset, if everything is awful, if you're just about to explode, if your emotions are really high, you cannot access the rational part of your brain. We are all like this. That's why when our emotions are high, we end up saying and doing things that we later regret. So we worked a lot on her, why she was getting triggered, why her plate was so full, ways to make her life less overwhelming, so that she didn't constantly feel like she was about to lose it. We did work on that. And one thing we worked a lot on, and I think that it's important for all moms out there, is the guilt. It's not helpful. It is helpful in the sense of, okay, I feel like I did something wrong and now I need to make amends. This is really important. It's really important that you show your child that everyone makes mistakes, and how do we make amends after we make mistakes. What is not helpful is to swallow in that guilt. To swallow in that guilt of like, I'm the worst mom alive. Because first of all, that's not true, right? It would be impossible that all moms are the worst mom. and second, that feeling you're having is just a way of your body showing you, I need to, show my child how to deal with this. I need to show my child what it is to be human, right? Because one of the worst things that we as parents do is create, this perfectionism of always being like, let me do this. No, you are going to spill the milk. Let me fill up the glass for you, right? Then your child is constantly scared that if they are going to spill the glass, you're going to snap at them, right? So they start being like, oh, can you do it for me, right? Because they feel like making mistakes is awful. It's like an awful thing. So it's better not to do something than to try it and make mistakes. And this is an awful mindset. We need to show our children the power of a growth mindset, the power of like, it's by failing that we learn and we grow, right? And failing is part of the human nature. And making mistakes is how we grow. Because if you don't teach your child how to deal with those things, they are going to create all these unhelpful ways to deal with those situations that will create a lot of problems for them in the future. Probably you yourself, you struggle with that yourself, right? Failing, asking for help, apologizing, all those things, right? So we need to show our children that it's by failing that we learn. Failing is not the problem, right? If you spill the milk, that's no problem. Now you learned that when you hold it like this, it spills. You're practicing, right? Everything needs practicing. I'm not going to get upset for you for practicing. You spilled the milk, you made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. Mom also makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. And when we make mistakes, we make amends, which in the case of the spilled milk is we clean it up. And children learn much better by being modeled to than by being told. So when you say something like, go and apologize, you did something wrong, go and apologize. If the child says, I'm sorry, they are not doing it because they really feel they need to make amends. They are doing it because they know that this is the way you get people out of my back, right? Okay, this person is forcing me to apologize, I apologize, and then I'm off the hook, right? So the best way that you can show to your child how to make amends is by modeling, and you cannot model making amends if you don't also model making mistakes, right? So if you snap at your child, it's so important, and this is what I worked with this mom. We were doing a lot of hugging. Well, not me personally. They were doing hugging, she and her child. So what she was doing was every time that she snapped at her child, regardless of what the child had done, because again, you will deal with your child's behavior, definitely needs to be addressed. Your child needs to learn what is okay and what is not okay. And you cannot, catch flies with vinegar, right? If you want someone to listen to your point of view, you cannot start by blaming them and all those things, right? You need to also own your part of the problem. So regardless of, and this is quite hard, right? It takes a lot of internal growth, right? Every time she would snap, she would take a breath. We worked on some self-regulation skills, and then she would hug her child and apologize. I'm sorry I screamed at you. That was not okay. And only when both of them were okay, self-regulate, because hugging releases endorphins, and it's just a really good way to co-regulate, to help each other regulate at the same time, right? So it worked really good with them. And afterwards, after they both were, their emotions were down and they were both able to access the rational part of their brains, that's when the mom said, not like, I screamed at you because you did this. That's not true, because children are not responsible for our emotions, right? She screamed because she didn't have the ability to self-regulate, which is okay. It's part of human nature, right? It's a mistake we need to apologize for. I screamed. You don't deserve anyone to scream at you, right? Regardless of what you do. That's not okay. That's not how we solve problems. I want to model to my child how do we solve problems. And if I make a mistake, I need to say this was a mistake. That's not how we solve problems. You didn't deserve that. That was not okay. And when then you get, and by the way, this also works with adults, right? You start by empathizing, owning your side of the problem, so that then the other side is much more receptive to listen to what you have to say, and to also, own their own side of the problem. And this works also very well with children. So after you are both self-regulated, after you already apologized, then you say, I understand why you did it. So you were really frustrated because you were building that Lego tower and it was not working, and I saw how long you were working on it. And I know how frustrating that is. So you're naming the emotions, you're empathizing, you're showing you can understand why they did it. And when we are frustrated, we cannot throw our toys across the room because you hurt me. And no one deserves to be hurt. You could have hurt something else. That's not okay. When we are frustrated, we can punch a pillow, we can jump up and down, we can say, no, I hate this. Or you can ask mom for help. Or you can think, this is not working. This is so frustrating. What can I do instead, right? But what you cannot do is throw the toys. So then you're teaching the skills, right? And one thing that I found really nice was that she told me after, almost as we were ending our time together, she told me that her child had not ruined, but he was like playing with her shoes and, messed it. It doesn't matter. Anyway, her child did something that was wrong. And then she got mad at the child and she said, you did this to my shoes. You shouldn't have done this to my shoes. I told you not to touch my shoes. And the child came to her and hugged her and said, I'm sorry, Mom. I shouldn't have done that. And I'm sorry. So the child was doing what she had been doing. And that's just so amazing, isn't it? Like that, yeah. Anyway, if you need help with your child's behavior, just drop me a message or, check out changingparenting.com. My link is also in the bio. Bye.